Welcome back, all our 40k fanatics out there. I'm DJ here with Tim's Nation. And after a couple of rough weeks with the Necrons, today we are here to get blood for the blood gods. We are collecting skulls for the Skull Throne. It's time to kill, maim, and burn. We are playing World Eaters, specifically the Deamon Kin. So Deamon Kin is an interesting detachment. Some World Eater players are not a big fan of it because they look at it and go, well, if I want to play demons, I'll play demons. I wouldn't play Deamon Kin. And I can understand that. World Eaters are very cool. The only thing with some of the other detachments is you have a lot of duplicates. You're taking a lot of Berserkers, a lot of the same units over and over again, because the book isn't too deep. But with the Deamonkin, you get a whole access into a bunch of other demon units. Now, with that being said, there are some very cool regular World Eater detachments that I want to work on and get running. But this being an army that I've just loosely built and built up a collection on it, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. One of the things that I have been focused on is a lot of the demons that I like for this army. Big reason, Blood Crushers. Blood Crushers are super cool. So while there are great World Eater detachments, Berserker Warband is a ton of fun because every data sheet you look at is just a laugh riot because you go, oh, this is cool. But wait, it gets +2 strength and +1 attack when it charges. So things like Rhinos and Land Raiders, you go, well, that's getting interesting here on how that's going to work. So I love those detachments, don't get me wrong. And I can completely understand, especially with Necrons, I don't particularly like running C'tans because I'm running Necrons. I don't want a Star God in there. So if you want to run World Eaters, you may look at that and say, I don't want to play demons. If I wanted to play demons, I would, as I said before. But I do like the depth it adds. This detachment has a lot of very fun tricks. It is very interesting detachment that I like a lot out of this whole codex and this whole book. So we're taking a break from the Necrons for a bit, getting kind of the old codex blues. You know, I am not personally, Star Shatter is not my playstyle, and it's been having a lot of success. Awakened Dynasty is very good as well, and I have thought about messing around with that. Canoptic Horde is my one true love when it comes to Necrons. And it's struggling a bit in some aspects where some armies are able to put out heavier damage output. Now, after seeing all that, I came back to the World Eaters, so wanted to switch it up for a bit, take a break. And looking at the Deamonkin and looking at the list I was running before, I started to think about stuff with the meta. So if you guys have seen some of the Deamonkin that I've run before, this list is going to look a little different. We're making some changes, trying some stuff out, testing some stuff, and we'll see how it goes and where we need to kind of tweak it further with it. And also, you know, pulling some Deamonkin to go and paint and work on them. As you'll see, I started working on one guy who hopefully by the time I actually play the game, we'll get a little bit more work done on him. And I'll talk about that when I'll throw him up there. So, yeah, let's make it easy. Let's go over and take a look at the list and what I'm playing here today. All right, 5 points under 2,000, World Eaters Deamonkin detachment. The detachment rule for this army is that you gain access to 1,000 points of Blood Legion, which is the Khorne demons, the actual demons, for your detachment. Also, you gain access to the Blood Tithe pool. Now, we still have the Blessings table. We'll talk about that in a second. But the Blood Tithe pool is every time you destroy a unit, you roll a dice. On a 3-up, you gain a Blood Tithe point, which kind of annoys some people because they're like, well, you have to kind of jump through hoops to get that, whatever, that's what we're working with. Now, when you get the Blood Tithe points at the beginning of any turn, this includes your opponent's turn, you can spend those points to trigger an ability that you'll have for the rest of the game. For 2, you get 5-up Feel No Pain versus Mortal Wounds and Psychic Attacks. For 3, you get Lance. For 4, you get a 4-up Invuln. And for 5, you get access to the Blessings for your demon units. All of those abilities are accessible to demon units. The first one is accessible. The one for the Feel No Pain is your entire World Eaters army. Now, with the other 3, there are stratagems that this army has that specifically target the World Eater units. And based on those Blood Tithe that you have access to and active, triggers what level that ability is at. For example, the Blood Tithe that gives you Lance for your Blood Legion units. If you use that on a World Eater unit, for 1 CP, the unit will get Lance. However, if you have the Lance ability active for your demon units, now that unit will also gain Twin Linked. So having Lance and twin linked, especially when you have a blessing that allows you to have access to devastating wounds into infantry, can be super, super strong. I mean, twin linked in general can be super, super strong, especially for a combat army. And again, that's only for combat with the lance keyword as well, too, for the twin linked. And then for the invuln, same deal. You can target a World Eater unit, give them 5-up invuln, but if you have the 4-up invuln active for your Blood Legion units, you now have a 4-up invuln. So that's how the synergy kind of works over with some of the World Eater units to be able to gain some of these buffs and perks and triggers over there. Now the blessings are there, but they only affect World Eaters units. So until that blessing is, you get the 5 if you spend for it, none of the Blood Legions and none of the actual demons are going to have access to your blessings of Khorne. There is an enhancement I'm not taking today that gives you an aura effect that can give those Blood Legion units the blessings, but we're not using that here today. All right, enough about the detachment. Let's start talking about the army. For starters, we have 2 of the Forge Fiends. This is the change that I made. I've been running 3 since the World Eater book hit. I dropped it down to 2. Biggest reason, one, these guys went up in points a little bit. Not a big deal there because they are very, very good. But the meta has shifted away from their targets. These guys with the ectoplasm cannons come in at strength 10, AP 3, flat 3 damage. They hit on 4s, but if they're shooting at the closest eligible target within 18 inches, which also happens to be their rapid fire range, they get full rerolls to hit. Again, rapid fire, one thing that World Eaters do, a lot of their guns have rapid fire. These guys have rapid fire, they have blast. So you can get a lot of shots, D3 shots a piece. You can get a lot of shots off of these guys to really pick up different infantry squads, especially with that strength 10. Going into vehicles, monsters, and higher toughness things, they're not as strong. And with the meta having a lot of vehicles into it, I wanted to kind of make sure that we are able to answer those things as well and not put all the weight on Scarbrand's shoulders. So we are still running 2 of them because they can still shoot into medium-sized vehicles, things like rhinos or toughness 9 things, and still hurt them. But I want to make sure that those big chunky targets that are high, even the toughness 10 that they be wounding on 4s and going up, that they're able to, we have things that are able to answer those and not just leave those things lingering. Next up, we'll stay with the World Eaters for a moment. We'll go over, we have a 10-man squad of Khorne Berserkers led by a Master of Executions. So I went with the MOE today instead of Karn, because I'm not bringing a Rhino. So I don't want Karn killing off his own dudes, which is a thing he does. On top of that, we don't have any CP generation or CP reduction. So this is a way to get some of that in there with the fact that if he takes out a character unit, we gain a command point. The MOE also has precision and 2 damage on his attack, so he's actually pretty good at being able to hit characters and take characters out. Strength 7, AP 2, 2 damage with 5 attacks. So it's a good solid point for him to be at. He also gives the unit reroll on advance and blood surge rolls, so we can get these guys into a better position. As far as the Berserkers are concerned, they only have strength 4. There's no boost to that, so they're a little bit weaker in that aspect. But my hope is with these guys that these guys are going to be more, they're going to be kind of more threatening areas and not actually get out there and be aggressive until mid to late game, where they can gain access to some of the blood tithe abilities. Getting a 4-up invuln on Berserkers or having Lance and Twin linked on these guys when they're charged will make up for that lack of strength. And then they can really, really shred into things with some of the blessings of Khorne that we also have access to. So yeah, these guys, and we do have access to real failed charges off the blessing, so that's also a positive in there. But this is a unit that there are 180 points for the Berserkers. My plan is to get them in a good position where they're able to be threatening on an objective for that mid to late game, so that when a lot of my opponent's resources go away, their speed and the abilities we're able to put on them are able to get them over the top. And if we do have to go in the early game of it, we have the Master of Execution out there trying to gain us those command points and get us a command point and take out a character unit, especially since one of our stratagems for 1 command point, we get D3 plus 1 blood tithe points on that kill. So having something that can pick up a softer character out of there, gain the command point, spend the command point to do the ability, and gain all those blood tithes can really accelerate to get us to our golden point, which is 5, so we can trigger Lance as well as the 4-up invulnerable save for the demon units. Next up, staying with the World Eaters, we have a 3-man of 8-bound and a 3-man of the Exalted 8-bound. Now, I put these guys, and a Slaughterbound. I put all these guys together because the way I put them in here for this time is that the Slaughterbound has options. He can go with the regular 8-bound, gaining a scout move, and being on board and onboard presence if I feel like that's where he should go for the matchup. Or he can go with the Exalted 8-bound, gaining Deep Strike, and their abilities for that matchup. Now, the thing is with the Exalted 8-bound changed recently with a balanced data slate, losing their silly you can't fall back from the ability to now gain something that actually makes sense for an anti-vehicle, anti-monster unit, and that is where they get +1 damage when fighting monsters or vehicles. Now, this is for the unit, not just the 8-bound models, so this would be conferred over into the Slaughterbound as well. Both units have a 10-inch move. Both units have a 5-up invuln. Both units are toughness 6. Both units have a 3-up save. The regular 8-bound have a scout move. So I dropped the spawn that I initially had in here. Spawn are amazing. They can advance and charge. They're great for our Bloodletter strat, which allows us, when a unit is destroyed, ours or our opponents, we can summon a squad of Bloodletters in their place. They're great for that. But for the synergies of this list, I didn't feel like they were fully going to fit. With just a squad of Berserkers, it'd be very easy for my opponent to crash on my army early and overwhelm my Berserkers and my Juggernauts. So I wanted to have some more units that could do damage. I'm a little leery about the 3-mans. Like I said, we're trying it out today. We're testing some stuff and seeing what direction we go and how we want to balance this thing. So we'll see how it goes. But the 8-bound have a ton of attacks. They just shred in combat, and they do have 2 damage, so they can hit those chunkier things. But with how much vehicles are in the meta, I wanted to make sure that I have some things that are more dedicated, as I mentioned, to that anti-vehicle realm. That's where the Exalted 8-bound come in. Now, the Slaughterbound is the linchpin of this, depending on the matchup. The Slaughterbound can join either unit. He has the ability to resurrect a bodyguard for each of those units when he's leading them. So either squad that he's with, he can resurrect one of the dudes. He gains either Scout or Deep Strike for whichever unit he's joining. And once per game, he can go +3 attacks. Now, we gave him the enhancement. Oh my gosh, can't remember the name of it now. Blade of Blood, Blood something. I'm messing it up. So it's the enhancement gives him +1 strength, +1 attack, and +1 damage. Now, the Slaughterbound initially is 2 damage. If he goes with the Exalted 8-bound, which is where I'm initially thinking he's going to go, then he will get +1 damage going into monsters or vehicles, taking up to 3 damage. Now, the enhancement will then take him up to a solid 4 damage. And then once per game, being able to take his 6 attacks with the +1 for the enhancement and the 3 attack buff to go up to 10 attacks once per game at strength 11. The strength 11 doesn't matter as much. But that 10 attacks and 4 damage can really, really smack something. Now, I've been on the fence with it, and game time, I'm going to think about, at the time of recording this video, I'm still considering. And by the time of the game, I might switch his enhancement over to the Master of Execution to be able to give the Master of Execution a little bit more of a boost. The +1 strength matters more with him because the Master of Execution is strength 7, so taking him up to strength 8, being able to wound on 2s versus things that are toughness 4, and the 3 damage will really help him to be able to pick off those characters, where the Slaughterbound's base stats alone might just be enough to go through. So right now I have it on there, but I'm still thinking about it. So game time, I might switch it over to the Master of Execution. But either way, the Slaughterbound is going to be the 4th man to help keep these guys alive, and again, be able to resurrect some of the dudes when they get dropped off, get knocked out, and deep striking in 8-bound, Exalted 8-bound, rapid ingress potentially, whole bunch of cool tricks out of there to be able to put the damage forward, and then have more World Eater units to gain the buffs on things like giving them Lance. Not as relevant for fighting vehicles with the Exalted, but the Twin Linked would be very nice. The Exalted have anti-vehicle, anti-infantry 3-up, so the Lance doesn't really help them as much. The regular 8-bound do have an aura effect that gives +1 to hit into non-vehicle monster units, as well as +1 to wound if the unit's below 50%. So it's a nice strong cleanup and can help, especially if they're near the World Eaters. And again, dropping the spawn for these guys is just a little more of a damage dealer that can also still scout and be able to put my game a little bit more forward. Next up, to start bridging over to demon units, we have our Juggernaut Lord leading a squad of Blood Crushers. So the Juggernaut Lord has an enhancement that allows him to lead the Blood Crushers. All in all, what this gives us is a unit that can go through walls, charge, and do impact damage. On a 4-up, they do D3 mortals on the impact. They have Lance for their mounts. The mounts do more damage than the guys actually do, kind of, in most scenarios. And just a very, very fast-moving, strong cavalry unit. These guys will get access to the blessings since they are led by a World Eaters unit. The way that everything works out and reads out, you can look into this. This has been a topic of conversation, but it is actually FAQ'd and it is true on this statement. Because they are led by a World Eaters unit that has the blessings of Khorne keyword, they do get the blessings. So that's very nice. Getting these guys a 4-up invuln makes them super, super durable. As much as I love these guys, there's not really much else to say there. They're a 10-inch moving unit with 4 wounds that just wants to charge and get in your face and do a whole bunch of damage. Their big damage dealing is off those mortal wounds when they charge, which actually can be interesting for the strat that summons Bloodletters. Since it's done during the charge phase, if we can destroy a unit with that damage, we still activate the unit. There is a 6-inch pile-in and consolidate strat, so these guys could charge, destroy a unit, be able to still 6-inch pile-in to another unit to still fight into combat because they're a charging unit, so they still get to activate. And because they destroyed a unit in charge phase, spend a command point, bring down Bloodletters, we're still in the charge phase. Those Bloodletters could then declare a charge. So some very interesting interactions off it. As we'll talk about Bloodletters more later. It's not the completely game-breaking from them, but it is something very cool and very strong that could really catch an opponent off guard. And suddenly you go from 1 unit rushing you to now there's 2 units progressing into your backfield. Moving on, we'll go into the Bloodletters. So we have 2 10-mans of Bloodletters. 90 points, 1 wound, 5-up invuln, 2 attacks apiece, strength 5 AP, 2 damage, I believe offhand. There's not much here. They're not that good as far as stats are concerned. They're very mediocre. 10 dudes for 90 points, mediocre stat line in general. Decent combat profile, but I mean, you're looking at a combat army. What makes these guys gold is that strat. Whenever a unit is destroyed, so this is mine or my opponent's, I can spend a command point. You can only do this once per battle round. But when you do it, you place a new unit, one of these units of Bloodletters from reserve, wholly within 9 inches of the destroyed unit, but outside of 6 inches of your opponent. So when my opponent tries to shoot me off an objective, goes, ha ha ha, now you don't have it? Ha ha ha, 1 command point. Yes, I do. Such a brutal stratagem that it makes taking 2 of these guys worth it. There's times I've considered taking 3 just to be able to do this, but we do have the ability to pick up a unit for a command point at the end of the battle round or at the end of the fight phase and my opponents, put them in reserve, and they do not have to come directly back, so we could technically recycle around that. Bloodletters are nothing to write home about. They're not going to run the world and take over the world and destroy everything, but when you get into those matchups versus units that are screening units that are going out to try and get objectives and stuff like that, their attack profile and their damage is quite enough to be able to clear those things and answer back. But strong elite combat units and anything that is more elite are going to pick these guys up relatively quickly. You're not taking them to take over the world and destroy everything. You're taking these guys because that strat is so powerful that it can completely mess with your opponent's turn. They don't know when you're going to use it. They don't know when you're going to do this. You could end up summoning, you could shoot down a unit and then summon these guys in your opponent's backfield and have them there to charge something they thought was safe and take on some softer targets that are meant to fight at range, and now they're in combat with bloodletters. So there's a lot that these guys can do to be able to get to targets that you'd want to have these guys on versus that heavy infantry, heavy elite fighting units that are just going to mop them up real quick. All right, so there is one more World Eater unit we didn't discuss, and that's a 10-man squad of Jackals. So Jackals, 65 points. These guys are still not painted. They're still not painted because, well, I don't think any World Eater player really wants to paint Jackals. But I'll get to them. Don't worry, I will. So the Jackals have one really, really good ability that I like about them, and that is the fact that they do sticky objectives. In the past, I've taken 2 and 3 units of these guys, but because of how I've noticed in the past with this detachment, I need a little more damage output. That's where I took these guys down. So these guys kind of work in a trifecta with the next unit I'm going to talk about. But this goal with these guys is to start off near my home field, touching the home field objective, sticky it, and then start moving to a new objective to try to sticky that before they probably will get destroyed at that point. Again, with the Bloodletter strat, if these guys get destroyed before they finish their mission, I can bring Bloodletters down and have the Bloodletters keep going and continue with it. But again, that's the only thing they're there for, is to be able to rush over to an objective and be there and just get it stickied so that we can continue to progress the board state. Now, that is put a bit of a risk where our opponent can simply just deep strike something down onto that objective and take it away. But if we're doing our job and keeping pressure on them, if they take our home field, we might take their home field and trade. So but by having that sticky, it's like if you don't take my home field and I'm putting pressure and take yours, now we're really pushing into a winning scenario there. So we got the 110-man squad of Jackals to do some sticky objective shenanigans. And next up, as I mentioned, we're going to take 2 squads of the Flesh Hounds today. So Flesh Hounds are cheap. They're 2 wound models. They're demons, and they up down. So these guys are what I'm going to use to zone out my home field. I can pick them up. And then because of the sticky objective factor on my home field objective, I'm able to pick them up at the end of my turn, and I'll still score my primary, and then flip my cards and see what I want to do with them. And a lot of times they're probably just going to come right back down and sit there and hold out and zone out my home field objective. But in scenarios where we see behind enemy lines, engage on all fronts and things like that, if we don't have units in position, these guys can fill those voids to keep our secondary game going. And that's pretty much it for them. They are better and durable and have a little bit better combat than some other units, and then the Jackals, obviously. So that's very nice. And a 3-up Feel No Pain versus Psychic attacks, which is hilarious. But for the most part, this is my secondary game is going to be based off these guys, being able to pick them up, putting them back down, zoning out my backfield. So I don't have to worry too much, and I can keep pushing everything forward. They'll work well with the Jackals because, again, the Jackals can sticky the objectives that these guys are holding. I can pick them up, see what my secondaries are, which is kind of one of the issues sometimes with up-down units is that you pick them up, and if you pick them up, then you lose control of the objective that you're on. So by having the sticky objectives off the Jackals, I can pick these guys up, still score the points, see what my secondaries are, and then put them back down on the field. Last, but surely not least, the big red machine himself, Skarbrand. Skarbrand is a monster. Literally, he's got the monster keyword. Toughness 11, 20 wounds, and he just will smack in combat. He's also one of the few units in the World Eater Codex that does have the ability to advance and charge. So Skarbrand is definitely going to be a big beat stick when it comes over with this army. He's probably going to start the game in strategic. He has deep strikes, so being able to rapid ingress him puts him in a position where he can just move out. And even though he's a monster and has to deal with going around terrain, he doesn't have fly. Remember, those wings are just aesthetic after Khorne himself beat him to a pulp. But he has the advance and charge, so he can still get around terrain and such like that he can rapid ingress in and just loom over your opponent and going, here's what you're getting next turn. So there's not much to say about this guy. He hits like a truck. He has a ton of attacks. He smacks you really hard. And he's got an aura that gives all these Blood Legion, all these demon units, an additional attack. So any of those guys that are within range of him can get a boosted attack. But for the most part, he's just going to smash faces. Most of the time, he's going to start in strategic reserve. He does have an interesting overwatch on his flamer, which is he will scream at you for 2d6 shots. So that might be interesting into some matchups, like with Dark Eldar being able to kind of zone out the board. They'd really be able to mitigate what I'm charging into. Having him on board might be good in some scenarios to move forward, burn down the Dark Eldar, and then continue into another target, especially since Skarbrand's not ever really going to find a super value target to threaten, but into Marines and other things that have more expensive units, high value targets, bringing him out of rapid ingress and reserve, and then being able to activate him the next turn, charge in, and crush something of high value is going to be a strong, strong point of where he is. So, yeah, that's Skarbrand. Hopefully by game, he's something I'm working on today, so by game time, maybe we'll see a little more paint on him, a little more love, because I'm planning on going and working on him a bit more today. But that's it. That's the list. All right, so changes I made. So I dropped out Spawn. I was running 2 before. I'm running 0, but I am running 8 bound. Reason why? Spawn, cool. Advance and charge, awesome. Great profile, great everything. Out of other World Eater attachments that they can get the plus strength on the charge, like Berserker Warband, I still would run them. And honestly, there's a time in a world after this, they might come back in. But I want to have something that is more, has the stats to do the damage, so I dropped the last squad in that I had in there out for the regular 8 bound that has a better just damage profile overall. And then the Exalted 8 bound is something that are able to focus on those vehicle and monster targets that I want to make sure I can hit those. What else is there that came out? Demon Prince. That's a big one that I've had people like, why is there no Demon Prince? Demon Prince is amazing. Everything, pound for pound, one of the best units in the World Eater Codex, hands down. Cannot say anything bad about him, except when it comes to Deamonkin. So the one thing with the Demon Prince is his lone op ability triggers when he's within 3 inches of World Eater infantry. Not Blood Legion, not vehicles, nothing else, just infantry. So we do have a couple infantry units, but we have those infantry units because we don't have the Demon Prince. And the Demon Prince, so 2 things. The Demon Prince hits hard, yes. So do some of the other things that I swapped in for. Okay, so we swing over there. We do have the damage output we're still making. You have the CP reduction 12-inch aura. That's great. But it's not as easy to... in the past, with the Deamonkin detachment, it typically doesn't come into play as often as you would like. With some of the strats, especially being able to pick a unit up, we could pick the... I mean, we're not usually within 12 inches to pick that unit up. The Bloodletter strat is typically further away from him, so we're not really spending the CP over there very well on that. And then we do have the buffs late game that we could do when we have some of the strats up for those, for like the Lance and the Invuln. That's a good one to target through. But then that means we're kind of buckling everything together and nearby. And a lot of those infantry units, because I have points invested into demons versus the infantry, it starts to become not quite as good. We then end up, we can replace those units with Blood Legion units, but now we lose the Feel No Pain. And so I don't get as much of the value out of him as I would to put him into an infantry unit that can move through runes and do damage. So, it really took me a lot. There was a lot of back and forth with it. And it was like in the 11th hour, I decided to pull the Demon Prince to go with some more units. And I'm very happy with the way the build looks. I'm able to test out a bunch of different things. So we'll see how that works out. Who knows? I might be missing the Demon Prince afterwards. But I feel like in the past, the Demon Prince has kind of been a ball and chain I've been dragging across the field and not getting as much out of him as I do in other detachments when I run him. And he's not a ball and chain. He's a jet fuel with nitros in it, or jet engine with nitrous in it, and he's just rocketing my army across the field, and you can't stop him from doing what he's doing because there's so much more. We do have almost just under, like really close to 1,000 points of demons that are not gaining as much, and a lot of our army is able to spread out over the field and do stuff that he doesn't get as much value out of this detachment or this build as he does in every single other detachment, even the Gore Track Onslaught, because there's a lot of infantry getting out of vehicles. So that was a tough one. Again, we had a bunch of Jackals in there before, but just the lack of damage output. Again, once we start looking at where the points are and what we have all over the place, the lack of what they do elsewise, I decided to switch them out. And again, we have the Flesh Hounds, which, while the Flesh Hounds are not going to be, again, a high damage unit, it's kind of where like the blood letters come in, and they come in. It's like they're better than Jackals when it comes to the damage. They're not as good as some other things, but they're better than those. So when they need to go in there and you have one or two Marines that are sitting on an objective, they can answer those things, clear those off, and be able to continue scoring points. So that's kind of where we're going with. That's the mindset and the concept that I'm looking at with that. And then last was the Forge Fiends. Just the meta shift. I just feel like the meta shift and the point increase, I can go down to 2 and still get the damage efficiency out of that. I'm planning to put them on board, but I do like putting one in strategic, depending on the matchup. You know, if we go into a heavy set up-down Marine matchup, I might put one of those into strategic to bring it on and be able to just guarantee I'm within 18 inches of the target and put all of my love into that target and really hurt it, flat 3 damage. Even those Indominator kill teams will hate him. So that's it. With this army, this is something, World Eaters is something that I would consider playing in a GT and playing competitively. And if I was going to, this is the detachment I would want to play. So I haven't, this is breaking some of the dust off of them, looking at what the meta looks like now and what some of the armies are and what some of the things we're facing. This is what we're going to try and tweak this a bit as we go. I'm not saying this is the final design by any means. There is a lot of things I'm testing in here. I don't know if I want the 2 squads of 8 bound in both of those. The slaughter bound might be for a loss. Maybe we need to go over just Karn and a Rhino. And yeah, there might be a bunch of other changes. Maybe we do need the 3 Forge Fiends. You know, so there's still a lot on the table with this. That, ironically enough, the only way to find out is by putting it on the table. So we'll see how this does. I got high hopes for it. Got a lot of cool things, a lot of cool damage, and of course, we got the big red machine, Scarbrand. He's always good for smacking something, so that'll be fun. I love running him. He's such a beast, such a beast. So, and my Juggernauts too. Oh, love those things. A little more fragile than you'd expect, but still, man, they can hit like trucks. So, all right, guys, that's it. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon.